Howdy, howdy. My name is Michael Praticante, and I will be displaying the level that I built for the 2023 capstone titled Voidspoken for Toronto Film School. So this is where I am currently is where the player would spawn at. And right from the very beginning, I wanted it to be non-linear, and the player is given multiple ways to start their journey. So there's one of three ways. The player can either choose to go straight ahead, and they would be meted with a blocked barricade but two staircases on the sides. Each staircase, if traversed upwards, leads to their objective, which are these purple obelisks. There are five scattered around the level, and the player needs to activate all five in order to progress to the next zone. While they try to activate them, there will be enemies that spawn in titled ghouls that will try to kill the player, and they have to kill a number of them while in the obelisk range in order to fully charge them. And as they charge up, the player needs to kill more and more of them each time in order to fully charge them. Over here to the right of the spawn is the food court and also one of the second obelisks, which I displayed earlier. The food court is here in order to make it feel like a more lived in space. It's showing that people would dine here, they would eat, because this is where like an area that they would like spend most of their time in. I want to apologize in advance if you see the video freeze here and there. It's just Unreal Engine shitting the bed on me. So to the left of the player spawn is not another obelisk, but it is actually just a pathway that leads to the player being able to see an obelisk off into the distance, this one over here. Over here is the incinerator, and I wanted to make this area make sense by putting a bunch of garbage around to make it show that this is what they would use to throw the trash into to kind of get rid of it. If we go ahead and cross this bridge, this is the second half of the marketplace, which would be the core market. I really wanted to show that that a battle had taken place before the Voidspoken, which is the main character, arrived on scene. So I did this by having smashed barricades, weapons scattering the floor, as well as blood littering the walls and floors as well. I would have also included dead bodies, but we didn't have that available to us when creating the game. I wanted the stalls to either have a bunch of their own identities by making them unique, or they would be full of scatter, which was meant to give off a more abandoned and like more of an abandoned vibe. So this one, for example, is much more empty, and including this one, and they're just full of bags to show people were packed up. While this one, it is a robot stall, and everything is more or less left in place because they must have just hurried off, right? Over here is a shrimp fried rice stall. I can show the interior a little bit. There's pots, pans. There is propane tanks, some pots and pans laying on the floor. There's like a cutting board with some knives. Over here is a tech shop. So there is like some radios, a computer that I sort of jerry-rigged by slapping on a crate lid, a TV, and a radio, and it kind of at a distance looks like a computer. Over here, this is another one of the more abandoned looking stalls. Over here is a vase shop, and there is just a bunch of scatter here to fill it up. I also included some of the food carts that were in the uh, food court. I included them over here to just sort of show that people would have also been peddling food on this side as well. Some garbage laying on the floor. Over here is a metalworking slash wood carpentry stall, which would have done some repairs or would have built things up for people. But they would sell blowtorches and some welding masks. There's a fruit stall. Over here is our mechanical prosthetics shop. Since the world of this game takes place in the future, It just makes sense that if people were to lose the limb, then they would be able to swap it out with a robotic part. If we carry on, there is a blacksmith over here. I can show the interior a little bit, as well as another one of the obelisks that the player would have to charge up. I in order to save on time, and also I felt it looked real good in the environment, was I added these kind of garage shutter doors to some of the stalls in order to save time on filling them out, but also to show that they were fully closed off. Like people either didn't have time to grab all of their items, or they did grab all their items and they closed up their shop for good due to the combat that was happening. Over here is the security watchtower. I actually blueprinted this little crossbow turret up here, which was meant to be like a defensive weapon that would have been used. I wanted it to seem like the people who were inside of this tower who left in a hurry to go fight, so I left the door wide open, allowing the player to go inside and get a health pickup. Over here is what would have been like a false exit. So the player's goal was to get to the Lendrith Cathedral, and while it seems like a straight shot towards it, when the player approaches it, a bunch of rocks fall down and block the player's path. If we progress through here, there is one of the other obelisks. And this area was meant to be a seating zone where once people get food, they can sit down and eat, or people could just relax at, maybe have a drink. I wanted the area to look like worn and broken. So if you notice along the walls and along all of the walls is a bunch of cracks and kind of water marks. Yeah. Moving on. Up here is one of the final obelisks. The player would charge this one up. They would defend themselves from the ghouls, and then they would be able to progress to the next zone. I will just be showing the catwalk next. There's not as much to look at in comparison to the main marketplace, but there is still some stalls up here that have variation to them. Some blood scattering along the walls and floors, some garbage, some boxes, storage. Oh, I really do apologize for the choppy video. Here's another stall, a little seating area that I put together. I blueprinted these benches actually. I took I believe I just took one of our sci-fi shelves, slapped up some boards onto it, and then extended them upwards and took a table, and it created a pretty it looked yeah, it created a bench that really fits into the environment well. But now moving on to our next area. So once the player completes all 5 obelisks, this door over here would open up, and I actually made the animation for this as well as the rocks falling. I will probably be making a second video just to display those, but once this opens up, the player is able to go down these stairs to the left, and they are approached with a portal. When the player goes through the portal, it brings them to our second zone. Hold on, Unreal okay, there we go. It brings us to the second zone, which is Lendrith Cathedral. So the player is greeted with this beautiful, beautiful sight, and once they progress through, this area was meant to be like a very intense battle, like a final stand happen. So there's a bunch of crates that are stacked up as well as busted barriers. But even if we look past the portal, there is more barriers that were there just to kind of add onto it, add onto the ambiance of the scene. Bunch of lights that were placed around, weapons scattering the floors. And then when you get into the cathedral, you're greeted with the monolith, which is the player's main objective for being here. This is the gatekeeper, which is our final boss as well. Originally, these stained glass windows weren't emissives, but when given a recommendation to make them emissive, I went ahead and did that, and I feel like that really added a lot to the environment. It gives it a very heavy sci-fi vibe. I'm just moving around. But yeah, all in all, this is the level that I created for the 2023 Capstone Voidspoken. I want to apologize if maybe the commentary on the video wasn't very professional. I just I wanted to display the level, and I'm not all too good with words. But if I wanted to explain the gameplay a little bit, I feel like I did well on that in explaining the marketplace. This area, what we couldn't afford to have any combat essentially. So when the player gets here, they're meant to be hit with like a very striking visual, right? All the deep purples and the greens kind of create a very atmospheric zone. And once they progress, it just feels like a huge battle occurred, and then they're met with their final boss. Yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough of the level. Yeah. Take care.